Hey YouTube, how you doing? Matthew, and this is the Counselors Guild. Thanks for stopping by. Tonight I'll be looking at a book that I read. This will be a book review. This is called Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, and it's based on Lindsey Gibson. It looks something like this. A pretty good book. It's not very long, just about like 190 pages. Very easy read. Really enjoyed it. It's kind of based off of Bowlby and Eindworth attachment theory, so it goes a little bit into that. But it's really easy to read. I feel like it could be. I think it's mainly written for I don't know, let's say civilians, but I guess lay people. It's not really a workbook or a manual for therapists, but it's still an interesting read. I don't have a lot of background information, a background or experience with the attachment theory, so it was kind of fun to learn something new. So, all right, but first up, we're going to look at the core problem, and that is emotional immaturity. So, what is it? It's the fear of intimacy. Emotionally immature parents pull back from deep emotional closeness. It's uncomfortable for them. It might be hard to get close to their children. Maybe they're not huggers or not comfortable. So, reality resistance. They use coping mechanisms that deny facts rather than dealing with them. Emotional unreliability. Their inconsistency leaves children feeling invisible once the parent's own agenda takes over. And the impact, especially damaging for emotionally sensitive children who crave deep connection. I think most children crave deep connection. At first, maybe not when they're teenagers. Maybe they can't wait to get out of the house. But I think most kids want that and need that. But if you have an emotionally immature parent that can't provide that, how's that children going to develop? Who's that person going to become? Hopefully a good person. But this is kind of where personalities. Problems come from. A lot of this stuff is in development. You know, if you look at like self-esteem, if you look at like self-critical thoughts, things like that, it starts at a young age. The ghost of children or childhood loneliness. Why we feel unseen. Definition. Emotional loneliness is the void left when parents are too self-preoccupied to notice a child's inner life. So I guess it's emotional loneliness is not being able to share your emotions with a parent out of fear, or they just dismiss them. You come home angry from school, and your parents are just like, "What are you angry for? Stop being angry. Don't get angry." Or they're not really trying to understand, where it's coming from. They just kind of dismiss it or minimize it. Attunement and absence. Mature parents attuned to moods, welcoming of feelings, and emotionally dependable. Child comes home sad. Mature parents are gonna attend to that. They're gonna ask them what happened. Why are you feeling this way? EI parents discount feelings, become angry when the child is upset, and shut down reaching out. So if they get upset, they get punished for it. Okay, because the EI parents can't maturely deal with it. So they dismiss it. Let's get rid of it as soon as possible because I'm feeling anxious having to deal with this child's emotion. The adult consequence. If you feel lifelong loneliness, it often points to a childhood where you weren't responded to sufficiently. How children cope with neglect. Survival strategies. The price of admission. Learning to put others' needs first just to secure a crumb of connection. So these are the ways children coped with growing up in a emotional immature parent's household. Okay, they put others' needs first. If I don't, then my parents will get angry with me, or I'll let them down, or I will disappoint them. So I always got to put their needs first over mine, and that should be the other way around. Children, as parents, we sacrifice, and we always put our kids' emotional needs ahead of our own, and that's I get home and I'm tired. But if one of my kids need me to pick them up or need to do something, then That's what that's what parenting's about. It's having to do all that. So you as a emotionally immature parents tend to be more, I'd say, selfish. You don't really put the child's needs first. Growing up too fast, children become super adults to escape the helplessness of childhood. They don't have a choice. There's not a parent. There's not an adult in the household. They have to become the adult. So you kind of see that people that maybe don't have childhoods. And the role self, playing the part of the parent wants. The caretaker, the achiever, instead of being oneself. And instinct suppression, learning to distrust your own gut feelings because they were never validated. Okay, so if you have your own intuition, well, that can't be right. Because every time I had intuition with my parents, they always dismissed it or told me that it was a dumb idea. So I cannot trust my own instincts. The 4 types of EI parents and the different styles. And I made a video of this a couple weeks back. If you want to look through my history, my videos, I did a more detailed video on these. All 4 types lack empathy and use children to soothe their own insecurities. The emotional parent, governed by moods. They treat every minor upset as a catastrophe. This is the parent you will walk on eggshells around because their response is emotional and not just little emotions, big emotions, loud emotions. We don't want to make mom upset. The driven parent, goal-oriented and controlling, they value your success over your feelings. You don't want to play football? Well, too bad. You don't want to, go to AP math and get into a good college? Well, too bad. The passive parent avoids conflict. They may be nice, but fail to protect the child from harmful family dynamics. A little bit too easygoing, too laissez-faire. The rejecting parent, well, I'll go back to passive parent. Passive parent, kids need structure. They need rules and consequences. So that can be also detrimental. The rejecting parent acts as if the child is a bother. They avoid eye contact and emotional intimacy entirely. I feel like that's kind of a sad household to grow up in, as a parent that rejects you. That just kind of gives you a cold shoulder and looks at you like a bother. That must be terrible. Personality traits of the EI parent, recognizing the red flags. They're rigid. They're single-minded. It's often my way or the highway. There's low stress tolerance. They overreact, blame others, and struggle to admit mistakes. Egocentricity, driven by anxiety and the fear of being exposed as adequate. Okay, egocentric. That kind of reminds me, or is it egocentric? Yeah, where it's all about them. Self-referential. All conversations eventually lead back to them, making it all about themselves. It's always about them. You get kids that are talking to a parent like, oh, when back, they come into family therapy and they talk about all the things that they felt neglected and was never heard, and the parent just says, well, and they just kind of make it about themselves. That's self-referential, and just leads back to them, never really showing any kind of empathy or understanding. Role entitlement, expecting respect and care simply because of their title, regardless of the behavior. I think even kids, I know, I'm the father here. You got to listen to me, but you gotta earn that too. You can't just be pulling your weight or pulling rank. You got and you gotta show them that. You gotta let them know that that they are deserving of your respect too as a parent. So respect is given when it's given. Or coping styles, internalizers versus externalizers. There's 2 paths of coping with emotional neglect. The internalizer, the self-reflective mental process. It solves problems. He or she would solve problems from the inside out. Highly self-reflective. Emotional life, strong, deep emotions, often feels too sensitive. Response to pain, feels guilty for displeasing others. Fears of being a bother. Relationship risk, overly self-sacrificing, may become resentful of doing all the work. Goal, learn that wanting emotional engagement is a healthy need, not a weakness. But also, setting goals and limits is okay, even with your partner. If you feel like you're doing all the work, it's okay to express that. Try to compromise and come up with a plan on how to balance that out a little bit. Getting over that guilt. That's an unhealthy guilt. You have to let that go. Every time you recognize unhealthy guilt, you have to let it go. Guilt's a good emotion. It helps you learn things, but people that feel guilty for something that they don't really have any responsibility for, that's just unhelpful guilt. The externalizer, action-oriented. Mental process acts before thinking, seeks solutions to the outside world, or seeks solutions in the outside world. But they're not problem-solving in their head. They're seeking solutions with resources, asking for help, finding people. Emotional life, they're reactive and impulsive, uses actions to blow off anxiety quickly. Response to pain, assigns blame to people or circumstances rather than self-reflecting. Relationship risk, often attracted to impulsive people, dependent on others for stability. And the goal, learn to look inward and develop self-soothing skills rather than blame in reality. Instead of seeking solutions in the outside world, blaming reality, but blaming the outside world for your problems. You kind of want a good healthy mix. You want to be able to be self-reflective and see how you contribute to your own problems instead of just pointing the finger at other people. The healing fantasy and role self. Psychological trade-off. The healing fantasy, a hopeful story children tell themselves. If I just do X, they will finally love me. This fantasy follows us into adult relationships where we try to fix partners. The role self, we create a fake self that fits the parents' needs like a key in a lock. We become what we think our parents want, even though it's not what we want. The cost, the true self becomes invisible. You cannot have a deep adult relationship while living solely through the real self. So you have to break that role self and live your true self. Okay. Communication with an EI parent. Why it feels impossible. Emotional contagion. They don't express feelings, they spread them until everyone else is stressed as they are. Right? They just spread it around. Misery loves company. I'm anxious, everybody's going to be anxious. I am frustrated, everybody's going to feel frustrated. And I'm not going to be better until everybody is. One-sidedness. They are not interested in reciprocal conversations. My way or the highway. I don't want to hear what your opinion is. You just listen to me and do what I say. Resistance to repair. They want things to go back to normal without ever discussing the actual hurt. Hard to give to. They crave attention but reflectively reject helpful suggestions of genuine care. Okay, so sounds like a fun person to talk to. I wouldn't want to be a therapist. They probably wouldn't want to listen to me rejecting helpful suggestions. Summary and path forward: breaking the cycle. Awareness. Once you label their behavior as immaturity rather than your failure, the pain loses its power. So it's kind of switching off that, well, my parents are unhappy because, I didn't do it right. So it's like, nah, you're a failure. Your parents are unhappy because, well, they're unhappy. It has nothing to do with you. They made it feel like it was your problem or your fault, but it's really just them and not them not being able to deal with their own feelings. And really, as a kid, you just don't have the know-how, the maturity to deal with feelings and emotions from a parent. Not your job. But it is the other way around. It is your parents' job to know how to deal with a child's emotions and feelings. Self-reflection. This is the hallmark of maturity. By analyzing your own thoughts and feelings, you differentiate from the EI system. So the second you can stop or start self-reflection, seems like it's a good way to break that cycle of being an emotional immature person. reclaiming the true self. Stop playing the role. Start listening to your suppressed instincts. Seeking healthy connections. Move away from the enmeshment and towards genuine emotional intimacy with mature adults. So as you grow up in a family or with parents that have emotional immaturity, you might seek out a partner with emotional immaturity because that's what seems natural. Or you might go the exact opposite of what your parents were. But you want to make sure you are seeking out mature adults, people that are self-reflective, that do care about your thoughts and feelings and not just thinking of themselves. Move away from enmeshment. Stop trying to be like your partner. If your partner has their separate interest, you have your separate interest. You don't have to totally enmesh yourself in that person's life. So, okay, I think that's it. Yep. Okay, well, that's all I got. I would recommend this book by Dr. Lindsey Gibson. Very good read, not too long, very interesting. I see a lot of both sides in my patients. I can see them growing up with immature parents, and I can see them being a little immature emotionally. And it's good to kind of explore that and talk about that because that's something that could be very challenging. I think growing up. Living an adult life, you can kind of see, are they enmeshing in their partners? Are they being a doormat for people? Do they feel like they got to fix all these people's problems? Do they suppress feelings because they were never really, never made to feel confident or like they can talk about their feelings with somebody? So it's interesting, and I think the Bowlby and Ainsworth attachment theory is very interesting. It's very easy to see. But that's all I got. Thank you for watching. Please leave a like, comment below if you have read the book or if you have any questions or anything to say. I'd love to hear it. But I thank you for your time, and you have a good night.